We are delighted to have a very distinguished academic director with us today, Dr. Carla Marquez Lewis, who is the academic director for our psychology programs here at SPS, a program that is growing quite fast, quite robustly. We offer both a bachelor's and a master's in psychology. And I would like to start by first thanking Carla, particularly in the context of Hispanic Heritage Month. It is great to have Hispanics in positions of leadership like you. And we have several other leaders in the school who are of Hispanic heritage. So this is a way of celebrating as well this important month. Thank you for joining us, and I'll pass the microphone to you.
Yeah, well, first, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm especially during this important month. I guess, I have a counselor to sort of thank for my position in higher ed, or at least my path to higher ed. I should start off by saying I was a first generation college student, and I like to start and tell people that when they ask me about my path, because I think that's very important. I didn't know anyone that had gone to college. I was only the third person in my entire extended family who'd ever graduated from high school. So, college wasn't really on my mind. I knew I wanted to do something. I just didn't know what. But I had a really important figure in my life, a high school guidance counselor. And she said, you've gone to these, gate schools, that I tested into when I was younger. And, you should probably do something, with your, with the knowledge and the background that you have, even at this point, and go on. You tend to be pretty good at academics. So she was really the first person that talked to me about college. Simultaneously, I took a psychology class my junior year in high school, and I think the rest is kind of history. I was hooked. I really liked academia. I liked learning. I admired my instructors, and I decided I kind of wanted to do that. And so I think I was lucky that I learned pretty early what I wanted to do and had a pretty clear path to how I wanted to get there. It doesn't mean it went straight. I went to a community college. I took about 6 years to get through there because I was working full time. Then I transferred to a state college. Then I came to New York for my PhD. And, had lovely mentors in CUNY, and I stayed in CUNY because I loved it, and I love our students, and I love what CUNY represents and the access it gives to people, and the population of, that we cater to is a very important population. They're students, who were like me, a lot of them first generation, a lot of them minority students. And so, psychology was just a natural fit, I think, for my mind and how it works and my curiosity about human nature. So, yeah.
That's fantastic, which leads me to add a little bit of information about CUNY SPS for those on the audience who might be listening today and don't know a little bit more or want to know a little bit more about CUNY SPS. So the School of Professional Studies is a relatively new entity within the CUNY family. We are 25 colleges and schools as a system. The City University of New York, one of the biggest systems in the nation, as a matter of fact, the largest urban university in the U.S. With close to 500,000 students, both degree-seeking and non-degree-seeking students. So it's a big system. We are a part of it, one of those 25 schools. And the purpose for the creation of SPS almost 20 years ago was to serve a population that was not being properly served, which is the adult who is working full-time, most of them, or has other obligations that requires flexibility and accessibility. That's why we focus on adult learners, and adults can start at 18, but most of our students are in their mid to high 20s. Most of them work full-time. Most of them also have families obligations. So we need to provide that flexibility, and we do it by offering our courses, most of our courses and programs fully online. So we started offering online programs way before it became more popular as it has become during the pandemic. We have 28 programs between bachelor's, master's, and professional certificates. Very proud to say that the school has grown tremendously in the last 15, 20 years, and that we have already over 4,000 students, many of which have chosen your field, Carla. We have a very robust psychology program at the bachelor level and also at the master level. So, what I'd like to do, if it's possible, is for you to tell us a little bit more about what are the areas of focus of our programs, and what are the different potential path that a student who is considering psychology should consider in terms of career readiness, career preparedness. So let's start by talking a little bit more about our psychology programs and how they fit in those options that students might have as they progress in their profession.
Yeah, so our program is, as you mentioned, we have a bachelor's program and we have a graduate program. The bachelor's program has 3 tracks. So students are getting a degree in general psychology, but then they sort of focus and hone in on some area of specialty. So we have industrial organizational psychology, which is really where some people say workplaces. We have developmental psychology. Developmental psychology is a very sort of broad field. It's looking at human growth. So whether it's emotional growth, physical growth, cognitive growth, social growth across the entire lifespan. And then we have psychopathology, and that's really what people mostly think about when they think about psychology, clinical psychology, counseling psychology, that sort of thing. So for our students, really, they have those 3 options. At the graduate level, they have 2 of those 3. So we don't have the clinical part of it at the upper levels. We just have the IO and the developmental. And so for our students, they really have lots of options of where they can go because they have that general component. So they can utilize that piece of it, or they can highlight that specialization. And people in these areas find themselves lots of different places. So, with IO psychology, human resources, or working in people analytics, or thinking about ways to motivate people in their jobs. I think some of the more forward-thinking companies have really gotten on board with this field, the Googles, the Facebooks, the list goes on and on. They're having in-house people who are thinking about how do you motivate people? What do you do when there's been change in an organization that deeply affects people? So people can go that direction if that's the area of psychology that fascinates them, or they can do the really hands-on kind of clinical work if they want to go the psychopathology route, or they can sort of land in that very flexible middle, which is, thinking about one's entire lifespan. You have children, you have young adults, you have, sort of the middle-aged group, you have the late stages of life. And people in that area can find themselves in hospitals, child centers, juvenile justice centers, organizations, government agencies, hospice care. I mean, the list goes on and on. So I always say that, for students, I think the most important thing to do is to really keep your mind open, because psychology, you can bounce around. I mentioned, how I came to psychology. The one thing I didn't say is I didn't start in social psychology, which is where I landed. I was originally interested in child psychology, took an internship, and I'm sure we'll talk about interns later, and realized I am not cut out for that. Went into criminal psychology, then went somewhere else. So it's nice and flexible. So that's what I would say to students is keep your mind open.
Excellent. And by the way, let me just stop to remind our audience that if you have any questions for either Carla or for me, please include them on the comment section of our LinkedIn Live stream, and we will do our best to respond to it on a timely manner. But from what Carla you have shared, it seems apparent that there are many options in a career in psychology, or in study and application of psychology towards many careers. So let's try to step back in time to when you and I were in high school. You mentioned your own experience, the mentoring you received, the guidance you received, the first experience you had with a psychology class. So I imagine there are many students who have a similar experience. But if you were going to start looking into a psychology degree and eventually career, what would you recommend to a student who is starting his or her academic path, academic journey, in terms of where should they start, what type of disciplines or skill sets they should be looking at developing to be a successful professional in this field?
Yeah, I mean, I think it first starts with you. So try to take a mental note of the things that excite you just in life, right? The wonderful thing about psychology is that it's the study of human behavior and human thoughts. I mean, there is a whole area of animal psychology, so I don't want to neglect that. But human thought, human feelings, human interactions. So anything that has to do with humans really has some psychological element, and that's why it's so versatile. So I would say, think about first, what are the things that kind of excite you, and think about the classes that you can take. If you're a student starting out, start broad. The worst thing you can do is narrow yourself really quickly, and I think a lot of students do that. When I was at John Jay for many years, it was serial killers was the thing that people were most interested in there. And then they go into this little silo and then realize that wasn't the area. So keep it wide, distribute your classes, and then see what kind of speaks to you and what clicks with you and your interests outside of school. You're going to be needing to develop some very specific skills, no matter what area of psychology you go into. I think you have to have a natural curiosity for humans and an open-mindedness, as I've said. But, one of the things that people, mistakenly think of with psychology is that it's really touchy-feely, right? That, we're just all talking all the time about how we feel. And that's really not the case. It's a very rigorous science. And so we take a lot of research methods classes and stat classes. And it's not about the research. That's what I always say to students. It's about the critical thinking, the logic, the problem solving. Those are the skills that we're trying to hone. We want, psychology students to be able to, collect information, whether that's in whatever form, analyze it and make good decisions, be good consumers of information. So those are some of the really important skills. And then communication, with any field, and particularly if you're dealing with, interactions with humans, you need to be able to communicate well. So we try to hone in and sharpen those skills with writing, verbal communication. And then I would also just say, probably lastly is really thinking about your end goal. It's something we try to stress in all of our classes with students is where do you want to end, and then work your way backwards, because not everyone needs a PhD. Not everyone needs a master's degree. You only need those for certain places that you want to go. So think about what that end goal might be and do so utilizing the resources that are available. Like, in psychology, we have someone dedicated to career advisement, Dr. Isabel Alicia. She'll make one-on-one appointments with you and talk to you. What do you want to do? And here's some insight into how to get there.
Fantastic. Which leads me to, you just mentioned something that I think is critical. Not necessarily all students are aware of this. When do you truly need to have a doctorate or a PhD, and when is it not? In what type of career path is not absolutely necessary? If you can expand a little bit on that.
Yeah, I think that this is very important, that students understand that not everybody who's in psychology has a PhD. They see that because they're seeing their professors. But, if you want to teach at a four-year college, if you want to be a head director of a research lab, especially at a high-level government agency or an educational facility, you probably are going to need a PhD. If you want to teach at the community college level, though, you can do that oftentimes with a master's degree. If you want to just, go to the heads of your companies, you can do that with a master's degree and get the on-the-job experience as you go. So you'll see many people who are, directors of, people analytics or directors of HR who have master's degrees in IO, and that's going to get you where you need to go. Sometimes, you don't even need those degrees. You need the bachelor's degree if you've been in that field for a long amount of time, just to get you that educational component that you need. And then you use all those years of experience to keep you there. But it's really not a large group of people that need a PhD. I would say that a master's degree is moving that way. Having some specialization and training is a good thing. But
Could you be a clinical psychologist only with a master's, or need a PhD?
Great question. So PhDs in counseling psychology or clinical psychology are similarly, for specific people that want to focus on research and in addition to their clinical piece of it. But there are plenty of master's programs, masters of health counseling, just plain counseling programs that are masters only. And I know plenty of friends and colleagues who have private practices, and see clients with only a master's degree.
Excellent. So that leads me to a question related to what you just mentioned, which is your ability to obtain on-the-job training or understand whether this is a good career for you. So do you have any recommendations if you as a student want to explore a career in psychology, any recommendations in terms of what actions, what venues to seek to get an idea of whether this is a good fit for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say, there's three I think that come to mind. And the three I always, sort of preach about. One is you can never have enough research experience. All around CUNY, we're lucky to be involved in this consortium, because all around CUNY, there are psychology departments, or at the community college are usually social science departments, but you can find people doing research, and they're always looking for volunteers from students. And so you get some real life training on what it's like to do research. And again, research is not always about research. It's about the critical thinking. So, and you can make relationships with people, right? It's about, everything's about networking. And so that's a really good option. And students always wonder, like, how do I do that? And you can reach out, identify people online, find people who are doing things that you want to do. Go to the psychology department of Baruch, for example, and scroll through. Everyone lists what they're interested in and research, and find someone who matches. Reach out to them and say, I'm looking for some research experience. Are you looking to add anyone to your lab? And so you can do that. I know our students are busy. That's hard to do, but post-pandemic, a lot of this is online. You can do data entry, you can do data collection and all of that via the internet. The other thing I would say is internships, of course, are wonderful opportunities. As I mentioned, it's how I knew I didn't want to go into child psychology. I didn't have the stomach for it and was way too emotional. So, that way to test out how you will do in that particular area. We have a great career services area at SPS that can help, and our department as well. And then I think the third prong to that is mentors. Reach out to people. I have students who reach out to me all the time, some who are at SPS, some who are at other CUNY campuses, and say, I read your bio and I was really interested in your background at, your time at Sony, or your time at, doing work with prison reentry. Could we meet? Can we have a phone conversation? I kind of want to know how you got into that. And we love helping students. So yes, I'm always interested in doing that. So I would encourage that for students as well.
Yeah, mentoring is so important. As a matter of fact, I had a meeting with students last night, and it was a group of mentors and mentees, and the richness from having that opportunity to bounce ideas, to explore career path or academic path on psychology by having a good mentor-mentee relationship is critical. I do want to point out a comment that Clemente Diaz added on the comments, which is regarding the distribution of bachelor versus master or graduate studies in psychology. Interesting fact, he shares 56% of all students who receive a bachelor's degree in psychology do not necessarily pursue a graduate study in psychology. So there's plenty of opportunities to follow a career path that can be adequately obtained by a bachelor's degree, particularly in any of the three tracks that you mentioned. So that's great to know. Now, I understand that at SPS, as you mentioned at the very beginning,
Mhm.
we have a significant number of students who are students of color
Mhm.
and come from underrepresented uh, backgrounds. One in particular that I'm particularly interested in, particularly in now that we're talking about the Hispanic Heritage Month, is those students whose primary language might not be English, might be Spanish. We
Mhm.
have a significant Hispanic population here in New York City, so I'm wondering if we are considering or assessing possibilities to better serve that population here at SPS, and particularly in the psychology department. I don't know if you can share some thoughts.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know you and I have had some conversations about this, and that for SPS and particularly for the psychology program, this is about access and giving access to people to education who might not otherwise have that. And one of the huge blocks is language. So we're working right now in the psychology program on developing some bilingual courses in some of our key required courses, and the courses themselves would have English and Spanish components to it,
Excellent.
and particularly the parts that are about communication. So the written pieces, presentations, etc., could all be done in Spanish. Lectures would be a combination of Spanish and English. Office hours would be in whatever language is preferred by the student, but it gives people an opportunity to communicate in the language in which they are most comfortable and probably best skilled, to get their ideas across. And so we are working on that. I think it doesn't solve the problem of access for our Spanish speaking only population, but we have had some
Mhm.
conversation and we are working on other phases to that implementation, where we might at some point have a Spanish speaking only track where the courses would be, Spanish only. But it's important. It's important to give people an opportunity to communicate in the languages that they feel most skilled and most comfortable.
It is, I think, very smart way of starting to serve that segment of the student population. I can tell from experience. I taught many years at Ostos Community College here at CUNY, and I had many students whose preferred language of communication was Spanish. They could converse in English, and they could obviously communicate in written form. But when it came to the portion of class interaction, class discussion, some of them felt a little bit shy in terms of conversing because they didn't feel that they had the adequate skill set in the verbal communication of English. So having those spaces, those opportunities, whether it's an office hour, whether it's a study group, whether it's a segment of the class or materials of the class that are in Spanish, I think it's a great way to start looking at how we can better serve that population. So congratulations on looking at that option. As you said, eventually we will explore opportunities to continue expanding that offer. Now, one thing you mentioned, which I would like to highlight and maybe get your take on it, is the ability at SPS to obtain academic credit for previous knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
We call it credit for prior learning, or CPL, right? And there are many ways in which a student could potentially be given academic credit for that knowledge. One of them is what we call the portfolio review
Mm-hmm.
of previous experiences. Could be on the job training, could be exams that they have taken via other third parties like CLEP exams and others. So, can you talk a little bit about what those opportunities include for students who might be considering either a bachelor, probably a bachelor's in psychology?
Yes, if you've been, especially if you've been in the field, and a lot of our students have been doing something psychology related, and they're coming back to school because in order to propel themselves up that career ladder, they need the bachelor's degree, and so they've likely had some kind of trainings for their job. They may have taken some, certifications, anything like that. Bring it to us, because we can look to see if it matches all of the learning outcomes for a particular course. And if so, the students can get credit for that. And it's a wonderful way to save students money, but to also honor the experience that they already have and that they're bringing to the table. Because, not everything is it only matters if you sat in a classroom or you sat online for 15 weeks or 3 weeks or 7 weeks, whatever session it is. Our students bring with them some very important skills, and we want to take a look at those and like I said, to honor that past experience. So credit for prior learning is a very robust area in SPS. It's grown, and students are really learning about it and taking advantage of it, and we're really happy about that.
It also goes back to your point on accessibility, right? Because if we are able to give credit for prior learning, it allows the student to complete his or her degree faster and at a lower cost, because we do not charge any tuition for the accreditation of prior learning. So it's a great way to get to that finish line faster and in a more affordable fashion. So this is excellent, and we are coming at the end of our interview. So before we wrap up, I would love to, Carla, if you could share any final thoughts or recommendations you might have for our audience, particularly students who are considering a career in psychology or studies in psychology.
Yeah, I would say whether you're a student or not a student, come to our events. We do a pretty robust programming calendar every year. We do a series called Day in the Life, which gives students an opportunity to see, and anyone an opportunity to see what it's like to be in a career, what the path is to get to that career, what they do every day. And so we rotate, we invite people, all kinds of different psychologists to talk. We have a first generation student success series that helps sort of demystify academia so that people feel comfortable in a space that maybe wasn't necessarily built for them. We also have a great career services center that can be a really useful tool. They do a lot of programming as well. How to write a resume, how to get a job, how to do mock interviewing. So all of these tools, I would say, look at our events calendar, look at the resources that we offer at SPS. We're small but mighty. We do a lot of wraparound services for students, and we care deeply about our student success. So reach out to us directly too, because we're happy to help you in any way that we can.
Well, I wouldn't want to close without you being too modest. You say small and mighty. I wouldn't want to close without highlighting a key recognition that you received, your program received this year. You have been selected by the U.S. News and World Report as the #2 online bachelor's program in psychology in the entire U.S. So congratulations, Carla. It's a testament not only to your leadership, but also of the high quality of the faculty in the program, which I want to highlight. It's not only potential mentors in the profession, your faculty could prove tremendously useful. And I've seen the faculty at SPS as one of the most committed ones for the success of students. So reach out to your professors. They are there for you. We are a student-centric or student-centered institution. So students come first, and our faculty is superb. So please reach out to them. They're here to help. Carla is a great example of that, but I would like to give the opportunity, Carla, if you might, for those who are listening and would like to get in touch with you or with the program. Anywhere in particular you would like to direct them to?
Yes, psychology at sps.cuny.edu. Ask any questions, reach out with any needs, and if it's career advice, I'll send you to Dr. Alicia. She's wonderful about that. If there are questions I can answer, I'll do that, or our program specialist. Or if it's something that is specialty that one of our faculty have a research area, I'm happy to put you in touch with them as well. Yeah, so psychology at sps.cuny.edu.
Psychology at sps.cuny.edu. Well, there you have it. Thank you so much, Carla, for this fantastic conversation. I hope it has been helpful to our audience, and we look forward to hearing from you. If there's anything at all that we can do to make your decision in terms of studies or career better, we are here to be of your service. So thanks again. Have a great rest of your day, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.